It's time for the Quarterly with Yummy Songs.
Episode 8, Camp Pendleton, California. Well, we finally graduated down there from Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and we had our bags all packed, and we're getting ready to get on our plane, getting ready to fly out to our first permanent duty station. Now, I had found out that I actually got the choice that I decided that I wanted, which was being stationed down there in Camp Pendleton, California. And the reason that I picked this place is because I had some uncles that lived out there in California, and I figured it'd be nice to be down there to have some family. You know, it's kind of bad for me to say, right? Because here I had my parents that were still down there in El Paso, and I really didn't want to be that close to them. But I looked at it, and being in California, I was about 10 hours away from El Paso at the time. And besides, my dad at the time was already starting to get orders to head down to Colorado, down there by Colorado Springs. I don't even remember what the name of that Army base is down there. And everybody that I know that's in the Army, they hate it because I call it a base. They're like, no, it's a post. You're supposed to call it a post. Yeah, whatever. I never cared about their feelings or what they cared about. So anyway, the night before, we had our sea bags all packed, all our stuff ready to go. And we had our alphas all dry cleaned because, back then, if, those of you that were in back then, when you first came in 95, it was mandatory for everybody to travel wearing their alphas. So they wanted to make sure that we had our uniforms all clean, pressed, because that is the way that we had to travel. Now today that's changed completely because they don't want anybody traveling in their uniforms because it draws attention, and we want to make sure that nobody is an easy target when they're flying. So the morning finally came, and we caught a shuttle that actually picked us up down there in the squad base in Oklahoma. And that took us down there to the Lawton Airport. Now, Lawton Airport, if you can imagine this, it's down a long little stretch of road. They call it a small little highway when you go down it. Nothing really around there. If you look to the left-hand side, there was a couple of businesses that were down there, lumber yards, so it looked kind of gloomy, and especially being early in the morning, it was dark, kind of gloomy, and you can start seeing the buildings there on the left-hand side. Towards the right, there was nothing. It was an open field. You can start seeing the airport down there because you can start seeing the runways and the signs you see, welcome to Lawton Airport. We went down the road for about another mile and a half or so, and on the right-hand side, there was the actual sign that said Lawton Airport. The shuttle driver turned into there and then followed the road down about another half a mile into the actual airport. When he pulled in, it was a 2-lane road. The left-hand side actually broke off to the left hand where they had all the rental cars and where you could actually park for anybody that was dropping anybody off at the airport. He took the right-hand side, which took us right in front of the front door, stopped there. He opened the door ever so slowly, and, we started getting out of the actual van. He opened the back, and then we started grabbing our sea bags one by one. Now, if you remember, back when you're first leaving recruit training, your MCT, SOI, or even your MOS school, everything that you own is in a sea bag. We only had one sea bag with everything that we had, which was all our uniforms, some personal hygiene stuff. Also, I had some civilian attire that was in there, but as far as civilian attire, we never really had too much of it there with us. So I grabbed my sea bag, went inside, and we went in there and actually checked in to the front counter because we wanted to make sure that we had our boarding passes. Now, one good thing that I do like about being in the military, especially back then, we never paid for any luggage fee or anything like that. If you were in the military, that was taken care of. It was an actual free of charge luggage fee when you were in there. Once I checked in, they had us sitting there waiting in a small waiting room. This waiting room was really nothing that, to get too excited about. There was one restaurant that was there. They had a bar that was there. And of course, being it that was so early in the morning, in the little restaurant, they were open, but they only had breakfast sandwiches. And besides, we didn't have time to do that anyway because we got to the airport pretty much right as soon as the plane was about to leave down there from Lawton, Oklahoma. Once they finally put us down there on our plane, since all of us, we were in our alphas, and there was a total of 9 of us that were going down there from Oklahoma to Camp Pendleton, California. Had about 6 of us that we were all actually going to the same unit. We were all going to be assigned to Sierra Battery, 5th Battalion, 11th Marines. So we were kind of excited that we already knew each other, and at least we were going to be together there because we were new. We didn't know nothing. We didn't know what exactly was going to happen when we got to the fleet. Were we going to be welcomed with open arms and say, we're glad to see you? We had no idea what the heck was going to happen. We were a bunch of boots. We're getting ready to go down there and heading into the fleet, and we had no idea what the heck we were going to get into. I'm pretty sure that everybody kind of goes through the same thing. You graduate your MOS school, you get ready to head down there to your first unit station, and you think, yeah, I'm the shit. I'm going to be the best person that is there, and nobody's going to touch me. That was pretty much not a good thing to think that way, because you don't know anything. You're just a young little PFC or a Lance Corporal that doesn't really know anything. All you know is pretty much the basic stuff that you learned down there when you were in recruit training. So you're a basic Marine. MCT, yeah, you learn some stuff, but you're not going to learn how to do everything. And then let's talk about MOS school. What exactly do you actually learn there at MOS school? The basics. Okay, our training there in Oklahoma and down there in Fort Sill, because we were a detachment that we were there on an Army base. They taught us all the basic stuff. They actually taught us, how to load rounds into the 155 millimeter howitzer, which back then we had the M1908. That's what I call the beast. So they taught us the basics, how to load a round, how to set a deflection, a quadrant to know how to get that gun aiming in the right direction. Those are the basic things that they taught you, and everything else you were going to actually learn out there in the fleet once you got there, because you had the basics. That was a starting point for us to actually start with. And now when we got to the fleet, that's when we were going to become more of a perfectionist and learn our actual craft on how we were going to do. It was about an hour later or so when we were there at the plane, they finally put us in. Now back then we didn't have these TRS people. We didn't have to go through all this security or anything. You just checked into the airport. They gave you a boarding pass, and they checked your boarding pass when you actually boarded the plane. Back then there wasn't really no concern or worry about anybody being mugged or anybody bringing all kinds of explosive onto a plane. And boy, did those things change throughout the years, didn't they? So they got us on the plane. We had our assignment, so we were sitting down in our seats. And this plane was one of those small little aircrafts. It was provided by American Airlines. That's who it was. So they got us in there. Inside the plane, as soon as you walked in, there was a stewardess that was kind of guiding us in, checking our tickets and telling us where we were going to sit down. They looked at my ticket and everything, and they told me, oh yeah, you're towards the back. So we headed down there. Now this plane only had 2 seats on each side of the plane. So you can imagine, how small this thing was. I would say maybe it held about 50 passengers, 60 passengers max. So it was a very, very small plane. So they set us down and everything, and we were actually going to fly from Lawton, Oklahoma down to Fort Worth Airport down there by Dallas, Texas. That was going to be our flight. It was maybe a 45-minute flight. So we were sitting there, and the stewardesses came by, and since all of us were in our uniforms, oh, thank you for your service, this and that. Would you guys want anything to drink or anything once we get in the air? Now, like I said, it's a very short flight, so not too many people are going to get drinks because it's 45 minutes. I mean, we're going to go up in the air, fly up there for a little while when we get to the altitude, and then get ready to land. That's one of the benefits that I do like about actually when we traveled in our uniforms, is that a lot of the stewardess or even some people on the plane, they wanted to thank you for your service, and they buy you some stuff, some food. There was even times that I remember that they actually gave us a beer, even though we weren't even of age or anything, but we were in the military. So, they gave us a beer, and we had one, and that was our drink that we had while we were in the air. So here we are traveling on a plane, getting ready to land in Dallas, Fort Worth. So, it was kind of exciting because I never really been down there to Dallas, Fort Worth. And growing up, I was always a Dallas Cowboys fan until this day. So go my boys. Hopefully they do good this year and they come up with something to be able to get another ring, because, yeah, they have 5, but they got to catch up to these other teams that actually have 6 now. People always tell me, hey, why are you a Cowboys fan? Why this? Why that? So, growing up, that's what I was brought up with. Being a Hispanic kid, down there in Texas, living in Juarez, right across the border from El Paso, that's what everybody liked. Everybody in Texas is a Cowboys fan, so that's how I grew up. So I was kind of excited because, going down there to Dallas, even though I wasn't going to be able to get out of the airport and go down and maybe see the stadium or anything, but still, for a young 18-year-old kid, that was an exciting time for them to be able to see those things. Now, when I got down there to the actual Dallas-Fort Worth airport, man, I forgot how huge this thing was. Because we get there, we get to one side of the terminal, and we have to go all the way to the other side just to get onto our next plane. You got to take a train or something like whatever they call it there, a tram, I think is what they call it. Man, you get there, we're sitting there almost running down to our next gate because we had no idea where it was. And then once we finally asked, and they say, hey, you're down there in terminal whatever. You're right now, you're on this terminal. You got to go all the way down there. Go here, go up the escalators, get in the train, take the blue one to the pink one, whatever. Craziness. So here we are, the 6 of us kind of almost sprinting down there trying to get to our gate because we don't want to miss our flight. That's the last thing that we wanted. We didn't want to show up late to our duty station because we missed the flight. That was the last thing that was on our mind. We finally made it down there to our gate, and very nice ladies there at the gate. They're like, well, yeah, we were waiting for you guys because we knew you were coming down. They had told us that you were on your way, and then they finally put us on the plane. Now this one was one of the larger ones now finally, so where we actually had about 3 seats on each side of the plane. So, regular size, I think it was a Boeing airplane. I don't know what it was. I really don't pay attention to those things, but maybe I should. When you're flying, maybe you should have an idea what kind of plane you're flying. I mean, even though when you sit down in a plane, you're sitting there waiting and you're hearing the stewardess telling you the whole little spiel that they tell you before you actually get on the plane and get ready to take off. Now sitting there on that big plane getting ready to go, I started thinking about when I was still about 5 years old living down there in Mexico. And I remember that our kindergarten teacher, and I still remember her name, it was teacher Leticia for you non-Hispanic speaking ones listening to my podcast. But I remember her being a nice young lady as a kindergartner, and she had taken us on a field trip when we were down there. And we went down to the airport, and we're actually able to get on a plane, and they let us know, what it was like to fly on the plane, how to tie your seatbelt and anything. Now, imagine a 5-year-old boy, 5-year-old kid that's never ever seen a plane or anything like that. I mean, I heard of a plane before, but I had no idea what the heck it was. So I was actually able to sit in one, put a seatbelt on. And that was like one of the best days that I remember back then because I was excited. I'd never done anything like that before. So here I am, I finally stopped daydreaming about when I was a young little kid living in Mexico. And the stewardess finally got done with her safety brief. We buckled up and we took off. Now, every time that I fly on a plane, I think the takeoff is probably, I won't say the scariest part of a flight, but it's when, you feel the plane take off, like the pilot hits the gas pedal or the lever, whatever they have up there in the front. And it's like, bam, you're gone. Plane speeds off down the runway, and before you know it, you're in the air. To this day, I'm like, man, I think back at the Wright brothers that did everything they did to be able to get the first flight that they recorded in. And like, man, how the heck did they come up with these things? How they know the mathematics and how the pressure of this and the pressure of that and the air pressure is going to make these things go in the air. It's still a mystery to me, because I never really actually studied or looked into how, planes actually get off the air, off the ground to get up into the air. But our flight down there from Dallas to California was about a 5-hour flight. So it was a pretty long one. Now, one thing that I remember from flying then too, I don't know if you guys can actually remember too, but back then, they actually fed you on the plane. It was included with your ticket. You got your ticket and they had food that they would actually give you while you were flying in the air. Cut their drinks coming for you to be able to drink soda, juice, whatever. But the stewardess were pretty cool when we were flying because, we were military, had our uniforms on, so we always got the upgraded food. They gave us the higher end food, I guess you would call it. I mean, if you can call airport food or airplane food, a luxury, because it's not that good, as we all know. It's almost like eating an MRE. Eating an MRE is your luck of your draw, what the heck you're going to get, and that's what you get. So here I am enjoying my 5-hour flight, and the stewardesses come by and pass out headphones to everybody. And I'm like, man, what's this for? I haven't really gone on one of the longer flights yet and everything to go traveling yet. So she gave us headphones, and what they were for was because they were actually going to show a movie on the flight down there from Dallas to California. And I was like, man, this is cool. So we got to watch a movie. Now, it's not like today, that you can actually have your little screen in front of you and you can pick exactly what you want to watch in a lot of these flights. whatever they were playing, that's what you watched. So whatever movie they had picked for that flight that day, that's the movie that everybody got to watch with their headphones. And the good thing about it is back then too is that the headphones, they gave them to you. It's not like today that you got to pay like $5 or $8 to get a set of headphones if you don't have your own headphones that you brought with you on the plane. The one thing that I really hate about it is that even today, let's say you bring your own headphones and you want to plug them into the plane to actually listen to music or watch a movie, whatever it is that you want to listen to or watch. Some of these planes have these special adapters that you actually have to put on your headphones in order for you to be able to plug them into the plane. And again, in today's world, if you don't have this adapter, then you got to buy the adapter from the stewardess. The good thing about it is that when you buy this adapter, you can actually hang on to it and you're going to be able to use it for any other flights that you are going to do. So here I am on my 5-hour flight down there. And I think I'm about 3.5 hours into the flight. We got our food, got our drinks. As soon as we were reaching down altitude and getting ready to head into San Diego, the captain actually came on the speaker and, gave us an update on our altitude. He told us that we might be hitting some turbulence as we were getting ready to head into San Diego, California. And then he also said he wanted to thank all the service members that he had on his flight. He wanted to thank us for our service and for serving our country. And I'm like, why is he even thanking us yet? We haven't done anything. Like, yeah, I made the choice to enlist in the service, but I haven't done anything yet. But, I was appreciative. I was thankful that people were thanking us for our service and that we had decided to actually be service members to protect our country and things like that. Even though, back then I was still wasn't a U.S. citizen. I was still a Mexican citizen. And I hadn't even thought about the process of being debenerized. Yes, I said it. I said debenerized because I can. For those of you that don't know what that means, it means actually getting naturalized and becoming a U.S. citizen. That's what it means. So, serving in the service to me was something that I thought about a lot when I was growing up. Not only because my dad was in the Army, but because here I am finding myself living in a country that I came to that really wasn't where I was born. I had all these freedoms, all these things that I had every single day. And, what better way to pay my debt to society than to actually, serve in the military and be able to, preserve all those rights and everything else that we have in this country, because I was enjoying everything that I had here and I wanted to make sure that it continued on. So that was my mentality of why I joined the service, not just because I wanted to continue in my father's footsteps. I mean, if I wanted to do that, then I would have joined the Army, but there was no dang way that I was going to do that. I wanted something different. I wanted a challenge. And that's where I found myself here on the plane, getting ready to head to Camp Pendleton, California, to my first unit. Maybe about 30 minutes after the pilot came on, or the captain, and he told us and thanking us for our service and all of that, we finally started making our descent down there into San Diego. Now I was looking out the window because I was lucky enough to actually get an aisle seat, so I was able to look outside and saw the buildings and saw the big giant city that was down there. And I'm like, man, I've never been to a big city like this. Nothing like that anyway, Being in Kentucky, it's a small little town. It's nothing huge. I mean, I lived in Ratcliffe, Kentucky before I actually came into the service. Population, I don't even know, maybe 20,000, something like that. At least that's what I thought. I don't know. It could have been a lot bigger place, but who knows? So the plane's going by and we see all these buildings, big cities. I'm like, man, this is huge. So plane finally made a touchdown. The wheels hit the ground and we started getting taxied into our terminal. Once we got down there to the terminal, we get out of our seats, grab our carry-on bag because, I had to have my little carry-on bag. And yes, before anybody starts thinking about it, it was one of our little ditty bags that was given to us when we were still in recruit training. And inside of that was my orders and paperwork that I have from when I graduated from recruit training, MCT SOI. And yes, I had that black paper folder, or not paper folder, our black plastic zipped up bag that we put all of our valuable stuff in there, or paperwork that we needed, So yes, SRB, medical, dental records, our orders, everything was inside of that. And you know, our drill instructors always told us, hey, when you get your stuff as far as your records and everything, you need to make sure that you carry that as a carry-on, because you do not want to lose that, and you want to have that with you when you actually check in. And that's one of the main reasons that they always told us to go ahead and fly in our alphas, because wanted to make sure that you were in the uniform that you were going to be in when you checked into your unit. So I guess that kind of avoided the problem if you, let's say the airlines for whatever reason lost your luggage, you were already in your uniform that you were going to check in, so at least you had that. So all of us finally made our way down there to the luggage claim, or the baggage claim, found our sea bags, grabbed all that stuff, and we were told that we had to go down to the USO part of the airport. So we made our way down there to the USO area, and that's where they have like a military service representative that is there to kind of guide us in the right direction of where we were going to go. Now, we had no idea that when we got down there to the USO, there was really no transportation besides a shuttle that they provided to take us down from the airport in San Diego to Camp Pendleton, California, where we had to go and check in. Now, all of us, you know, we thought that was included with our ticket. We were going to get transportation, or maybe somebody was going to be there to greet us at the airport and actually take us down to Camp Pendleton. So back then, I think it was $15 for the shuttle that took us down there from the airport in San Diego down to Camp Pendleton. So you know, we all bought our tickets, and the shuttle didn't leave until about 3 hours from when we first got there to San Diego. I think it might have been maybe around 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon when we landed there. So the shuttle wasn't going to leave till a little bit later to head down to Pendleton. But there was maybe about 50 Marines that were there waiting for the shuttle to get us ready to head down to Pendleton. So, you know, what were we going to do there? We kind of walked around, you know, the airport. The USO was still inside of the airport, but they actually had doors to take us outside. Now, all the doors that you were allowed to go out of, you know, they were everywhere on the airport back then. You can actually go outside, go have a cigarette, smoke, whatever, and come back in with no problem. Again, like we talked about earlier, there was no security that you had to go through as far as, you know, all the Nazis there when you go through security and they want to check everything like it is today. So you can actually go outside, come back in, and there was no issues with you getting back to your terminal or to your gate. You know, in this case, it was the USO that we were sitting there. Now, they had hoagies there again that they provided for us there when we were in the airport waiting for the shuttle. They had some phone cards that they gave us in case we wanted to make any phone calls home. You know, I didn't grab one this time. You know, I figured I had just talked to the wifey at the time, and I figured that once I actually got to my final destination down there in Pendleton, that's when I was going to actually give them a call. You know, so a couple of us we were kind of hungry. We didn't want the hoagies. So there was a couple of restaurants that were close by to the USO. So we went there and I think we got some hamburgers, fries, and a soda. Really didn't have any idea, you know, how long the drive was going to be down there from the airport all the way down to Camp Pendleton. About 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 or 6, I don't know exactly what time it was. The bus finally showed up, and then we started loading up on the bus. All of our sea bags were thrown in the bottom luggage compartment of the plane. Yeah, here I am thinking about a plane. I mean the bus. And we all got inside of the bus and found our seats. Now, here on the bus that we were getting on now, there was really no assigned seats, so we got to sit wherever we wanted. And like I said, there was about 50 of us there waiting to get on the bus and head down to Pendleton. So we started driving down there. You know, really didn't know how long the drive was because, like I said, it was about 6 o'clock or so when we left the airport. And come to find out, that's during traffic hour in San Diego. That is when everybody gets off of work and they're on the road. So it took us about an hour and a half, almost 2 hours to get down there to Camp Pendleton. You know, when in actuality, I found out later that it's maybe max a 45 minute drive without traffic. So as you can see, you know, it can be longer. And people told me before that sometimes you can be on the highway there or the freeway, the I-5, and you can take up to 2 hours or so to get from San Diego all the way to Pendleton because the traffic is heinous. When we finally pulled up down there to Pendleton, you know, went down there through the main gate, And then we started driving from the main gate to where they ended up taking us to. It was almost 40 minutes alone driving inside of the Marine Corps base. Because what they did was the main gate was there off of the I-5. You came in, okay, you had the sentry there and everything, a small little shed that was there. The sentry was there. He came in on the bus once we parked there on the side of the actual gate and checked everybody's military ID. So he wanted to make sure that all of us were on active duty and where we were heading to. Once we were actually verified that we were Marines and all those things, I mean, it's not like our uniforms didn't kind of give us away, but I guess, you know, it kind of makes sense because a lot of people kind of impersonate service members. We were finally on our way, and then we started going down the road. It was Vandergrift Road. You know, I still remember that road. We started going down that road and driving. The long stretch of that road is really nothing, just a bunch of hillsides and some little bit of trees, not many, down that road until you got down there to the area where the air station was at. There was an actual air station there where, you know, all the helos, the planes, they had them there. And on the right hand side of that area where the aircraft were, there was back then it used to be a Burger King, and then it became a McDonald's, and then it's a Wendy's. So, you know, I don't know what restaurant was there, but there was a restaurant there. There was a couple of smaller stores that were there. The military clothing store was there because we could see the big sign. And then we drove for about another 15 miles down the road. The bus driver took a right on a road that kind of went up a little hillside, and we went up that way. It was already starting to get dark, so the sun had already gone down by the time that we actually got down there to the area we were going to. And where they took us to was to the Joint Reception Center, or the JRC. They were going to take us there. We were going to check in, and I guess it was mandatory for every individual Marine to actually check in there first, because there was a lot of classes that you had to get before you were actually checked out to your actual unit. Now, we got there, it was a Monday when we actually got down there to Pendleton. Okay, so we left on a Monday down there from Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Got there that Monday, and the normal schedule was that you were going to be there in the JRC for a week. So for the whole week, you were going to have all the classes that you were going to receive, you know, giving your initial training that you needed when you checked into Camp Pendleton, California. So all the safety briefs, don't go here, go here, all those things that you were kind of taught, all those to make sure you knew where you were going. So we were there for a week, had a bunch of classes. Now I remember, like I told you, all we had was our uniforms inside of our sea bags. So once we got there, we were in our alphas. We were told to grab our sea bags, get everything off the bus, and then we started getting processed by a duty NCO that was on duty because it was already after business hours. So they collected our medical records, they collected our SRBs, our orders, because they had to be processed through the S1 department to make sure that it got stamped that we had arrived there at Camp Pendleton. We were assigned a squad bay because, again, you know, it wasn't barracks rooms like it is today. Everything and everywhere that you went back in those days was an open squad bay. So we got inside, we took our sea bags, everything, and then we were told to go ahead and put our stuff away and go ahead and hit the rack, and that they were going to go ahead and sound reveille at 05:30 in the morning, and they were going to take us to chow. You know, so here we are, you know, fairly new Marines checking into a base in the middle of the night, not knowing where the heck you really were or what is there and what's around the area. But at least they had, you know, duty NCOs that were there, or troop handlers that took us to the chow hall, brought us back, and then they got us on schedule to be able to get all the classes that we needed to get. So the adventure kind of started off there. Okay, we were there for that week that we were there, and then finally on Friday, that's when they called our units, and somebody from our units was going to come and pick us up. We're going to stop there on our adventure there from Fort Sill down to Camp Pendleton, California. We're going to start off next week when we pick it up, when we actually got picked up by our unit and taken down to our actual first duty station. This is Miguel, the Gunny Signs, sounding Liberty Call.